Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Bagley. Thank you all for being here. We're very excited today to talk about one of the most exciting new soccer clubs in the United States. We're welcoming to the podcast Brad Stith, Brad Z, founder, CEO of Athletic Club Boise, one of the newest clubs in USL League One, set to kick off in just a few weeks here. We're going to talk about Brad's background in professional sports, what led to this vision and dream of bringing pro soccer to Boise, as well as what does the club mean to the community? What are some of the specific tactics, strategies that they have used to build the buzz and set and break actually so many USL records so far without even kicking a ball? First, Brad, welcome to the podcast.
Definitely appreciate it, Andrew. Really, thank you for the time, and always excited to chat about Athletic Club Boise and obviously everything else that you're working on a daily basis.
Yeah, a lot of great things coming out of Boise too. I think one of the great things, and people not in Boise watching your guys' story and what you're doing, is it's not the first place you think of for pro soccer, right? But we're going to get into that and the context and how that's actually not so true when you take a more local look at the game. But first, give us a little idea of like your soccer story to an extent. You know, I know you've worked in the NBA, you've worked in a variety of professional sports on the operational side, but what are some of the kind of the breadcrumbs that have kind of led to this point for you in the game of soccer?
More than anything, for my time, both like with the Detroit Pistons and the Portland Trail Blazers, Portland obviously being a marquee U.S. soccer market and having the Timbers. And then we were under the umbrella when I was at the Trailblazers where Paul Allen owned the Blazers plus the Seahawks and the Sounders, right? But back in the day, you know, that was a pretty powerful portfolio when you're looking at professional sports in the United States. Boise's always been a great soccer town. I know that people don't get out to the Northwest a lot, but it's one, we've got an exceptional high level of soccer talent based on, you know, market sizes and what that looks like. You know, the fandom is just pretty rich and intense. And you can tell that, I think, if you look at both Seattle and Portland's fan bases, and Boise,
Absolutely.
I would say, runs parallel with that, right? And with us and Steve Patterson, who's one of my co-founders, who has, you know, one of the top resumes in all of pro sports in the U.S. From his time, I mean, leading, you know, Houston Rockets. He was GM and president. He built Reliant Stadium with Mr. McNair when Mr. McNair brought the Texans back to Houston, and Steve was president there. And then he was president and GM of the Trailblazers under Paul. He was AD at Arizona State, and he was AD at Texas. You know, there's
Some marquee
that kind of resume
there, yeah.
with those kind of facilities and that kind of knowledge. You know, there's very few people in the world that have that, right? So when I first moved back to Boise, Steve and I were like, okay, this is, back then it was one of the top growth markets in the country, and that was 15 years ago. Fast forward to now, Boise is the number one growth market in the country when you're looking at actual MSA growth. So there's never been a market that has gone up 30 spots over a 5-year period, and Boise jumped from 102nd to 73rd from 2000 to 2005. And so massive growth in the market. We actually had, we started the MOU process with the USL back in like 2013, just because we knew this was going to be a great opportunity, and not to mix every sports metaphor, but we definitely knew that professional soccer, when you're looking at kind of the U.S. landscape, was where the puck was moving, you know, both from a growth standpoint, from a valuation standpoint. You know, I've got a lot of former classmates from the University of Oregon that are SVP level at ESPN and Fox Sports and on the media side. And as we stay in really constant communication, just because we've got a solid peer group of friends that are tied in on that, it became really obvious even a decade ago that soccer was where things were going. And then going into where we are now with the World Cup and, you know, the Women's World Cup actually being, you know, time zone centric from a media perspective in 27, Olympics in 28, CONCACAF in 29, Men's World Cup in London in 30, and the women hosting again in 31. Like, there's never been a continent that actually had that kind of 6-year run with media for soccer, not to mention have it in one country. And so as we really got this thing going, the first toggle that had to fall was the stadium location becoming available, which happened back in 2022 when The Ada County here decided that they were going to take 55 million in federal funding for parks and actually build a park where it opened up another 31 acres where we could put a sports complex. So timing had to be perfect, and opportunistic, but we'd been working on this for as I mentioned, it's been 13 years now.
Hmm.
So we were ready to go when we saw that happen. And so, that's been the process. I'm on site right now, and it is like 3 construction projects all at once because they're finishing the men's headquarters. We've got pitches done, but lights and scoreboard are going up. They've been curing for about 35 days for the foundation. So
Mm.
those are going up today. And then we've got entire full infrastructure of the stadium going in on the east side at the same time. So it's pretty amazing to be a part of that kind of growth project and to do it in Boise. And this is my hometown. So
Right.
this one just means more, right?
Yeah. To use that foundation metaphor, right? You're talking about the lights. You had the metrics. You were looking at all the financial economic data that was like, hey, this can really make sense here. This can work. What was it like on that emotional piece, on that community side? Like tell us more about why you felt that Boise needed a soccer team, why the community needed that, and some of those signs, for the people outside.
So in 2015, we actually had a Bass soccer friendly between the athletic club Bilbao and then Club Tijuana. Unless you're from here or you're Basque, you don't know this, but Boise actually is home to the largest Basque people population in the entire world outside of the Basque Country in
Hmm.
northeastern Spain and the part of France where the Basque Country actually is.
Right.
So every 5 years, it's a global festival that Boise hosts called Hiality. And then back in 2015, they actually put together that pro game. So first tier 1 pro game that had ever hit here. And, they ended up selling, like, really without a ton of marketing, like 29,000 tickets here for that game. Huge success on that side. And then a couple years later, one of my co-founders, Bill Taylor, who's the former vice chair of US Soccer, he just
Hmm.
happens to
Yep.
be down the street in Boise. So, he actually had brought in Timbers 2, and they played another, back then, kind of, an MLS Next Pro level team in 2018. Like, literally without any marketing at all, they sold out 5,000 seats in a day. And that was kind of like the second, if you're beta testing a market, those are 2 pretty good beta tests. But from a youth participation
Exactly.
standpoint, per capita, the Treasure Valley here in Idaho is actually top 3 per capita in youth participation in the United States. And so, huge soccer market. And for me, coming into, this is home, so it was kind of a no-brainer for us. But when Steve and I have been evaluating markets and, if we're bringing pro teams from an ownership standpoint, like where our top markets were, Boise was always top of the list. And a lot of that comes into the fact that, we're coming in League One, and that was very intentional because of, where the USL is going, the fact that you're going to have by 28, USL Premier Championship and League One.
Hmm.
And a lot of toggles there where this market can take advantage and elevate, quite frankly. As we're evaluating things, like Boise had the right fan base. It's got really, between our Basque community and our Hispanic community here, the Treasure Valley is actually quite diverse compared to, I think, how a lot of people look at Idaho through a lens
Sure.
from a national perspective. And then on top of that, when you look at the corporate support of Boise, along with the massive population growth, Boise's always been one of the top corporate support markets in the country. It's actually number 1 in markets, a million people or less, when you're looking at top corporations. You put that all together as a blend of ingredients when you're looking at where do you really want to be, and the fact that this was home for me made it pretty much the biggest no-brainer that I've ever been a part of. But that said, since us announcing a go-to-market, like, you couldn't have a more incredible, overwhelmingly positive reaction from a fan base, from a corporate partnership base, from people that just really want to help us build this. And like, from the beginning, we had a mantra of built by Boise for Boise, but it's not a tagline, right? It's an ethos that we live every single day, and ensuring that our community here is enrolled in that process and feels ownership of this team. Because and I know you've seen me in a couple of interviews, from an ownership perspective, like, owners do not own teams. And if you think you do, you're in the wrong business. Like, communities own professional. soccer teams or any professional team, and you're just stewards of that team. And so enrolling people in and making sure that they feel that ownership as a fan or feel that ownership as a corporate partner, that's how you build championship culture.
Mm-hmm. How did you do that specifically? What were some of the initiatives and things you took from not only, your very experienced ownership team? How did that trickle down into, okay, we want to be built by Boise. We're going to do X, Y, and Z to actually do that? Because that's a big tagline now. We're seeing so many new clubs come in, and community is this buzzword that's almost losing all meaning because we're just using it so much. What were some of those specifics that you're like, hey, this is how we're going to build this thing. This is how we're going to actually get this buy-in that has then since led to you guys breaking so many records at a USL level and just being like building to this absolute boiling point ready for the season to kick off?
Yeah, I think that the first thing we did is it's like, how did we enroll the community as far as the fan portion of that? And then how did we enroll the business community and do that in parallel, right? So initially it was, okay, we're Boise Pro Soccer without a brand. And how are we enrolling people to be part of that branding process? Between actually going through listening sessions with kind of both parties, we met with over 2,000 people over that branding process. And I mean, consumer listening sessions where we're inviting fans and really looking at that. We had, and it was traditional listening sessions. They come in, we'd start with, okay, everybody's got a sticky pad and you're throwing down names and this is where you want to go. But outside of that, then you really paint the picture of, we had 36 different pictures of Boise, and you just do a general marketing sticker contest. Everybody's got 5 stickers, and the 5 pictures that they think brings them the most joy, they do that. And then we had another 48 crests of teams in the Premier League and La Liga and MLS, USL.
Those are pretty big sample sizes. They're more than I expected. Sometimes you'll see like half a dozen to 10 being kicked around. I'm surprised to hear kind of that volume.
I think it's only relevant if you do have that kind of volume. So if you're having that many people be part of the process and you've got third-party endorsement built in when you do that right, and you build trust, and then they go home and they're with their friends and their family talking about how they were part of the process and ensuring that, and it wasn't just like that one feedback session. As people came up with ideas, I was like, anybody we were in touch with, I was like, make sure we get them. We're putting everything together. And then from a corporate standpoint, we were meeting with 80 to 100 CEOs, VPs of sales, nonprofit managing direct, company chief human resource officers. That was our invite pool. And every single Wednesday, we had a lunch here at the Turf Club where then it was nothing fancy, right? It was cold cuts, it was chips, it was sodas. And it was really just sitting around talking about our plan for this club and for this sports complex, and really as a legacy project for our ownership team, and how we wanted them to build this with us, what support we needed, what ideas we wanted, and really enrolling them in that process. And we did that every single Wednesday for basically through right before Thanksgiving, and kept that rolling.
With that on the corporate side, I want to get into, right? Because I know I've heard you say in other media too, like, yes, we need to build this fan base of soccer fans, right? But almost like the spine or foundation is going to be that corporate piece that keeps things consistent for you guys. It's really important to have those kind of partnerships. Was there a certain moment, a specific meeting, something someone said where you felt like, okay, we've kind of tipped the scale a little here. We're over to the top of the mountain in terms of like our ownership, our investment team pushing this to now people are trying to really get the vision. People are taking it and run with it kind of on their own merit now, instead of you guys having to kind of set the tone, I guess.
I think those lunch and learns, if not for a better word, like, it really brought people together. Obviously, when you've got a bunch of nonprofit managing directors, where when you look at every major gala and every major golf fundraiser and really what they do to annuitize their development and the campaigns that they usually run, and somebody walks in, and the head of Boys and Girls Club, for example, walks in, and I've been on that board for 14 years here, and she literally knows 40 people out of the 100, right? Because they're massive stakeholders in the Boys and Girls Club. When people see that kind of interaction and the fact that we're the conduit where you're bringing people together, I think that's not us, right? That's just a business community that really cares about supporting our nonprofit initiatives. Like, that's just galvanizing people and bringing them together. And we're doing it through another channel in professional soccer. But if you're going to be community focused, you've got to have that, right? And so I think that where we started seeing the business community take ownership of is part of it was our foundation of, okay, from, impact standpoint, and I talk a lot about this. It's like supporting just Boys and Girls Club, Make-A-Wish, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Special Olympics, the Women and Children's Alliance, the YMCA. Really our touch points and impact focused on just kids that need help and ensuring that, I don't think there's anything more organic than a professional soccer team focusing on that. And then from that, really enrolling all those stakeholders in our plan to make sure that happens. And it's not a 1-year thing. This is a perpetual thing. That's our commitment to the community. And then every major organization from a company standpoint has their own plan and things that they really focus on giving back. It could be Habitat for Humanity, or it could be like, there's so many different great things that people are doing to make an impact. And it's then, okay, we know what our foundation is, but then what are the things that we can also augment when corporate partners really need just additional help and more visibility and driving their company missions for good, right? And I think that when you dedicate the resources there and you have that intentional commitment that we're here and we're going to make sure that, rising tide lifts all ships, then when it's really that lens on community impact, it's a natural thing that you're able to bring people together and then accomplish a lot of great things together.
Let's talk the specifics of who you guys are and want to be, right? If someone was to come up and say to you, hey, from all these listening sessions, from these conversations, from, the people selecting these pictures, the crest, all these different things, what are a handful of these specific values, characteristics that you guys as a club want to represent Boise, want to represent that Treasure Valley area, which I love that. I didn't know that was a term, but that's a credible, image there for you guys to carry. What are some of those specifics, that you guys are going to offer?
Yeah, I think that it goes back to our just cultural tenets of our club, right? And by the way, we're the Treasure Valley in the Gem State. You've got some pretty good levers there for
Yes.
people that are not familiar with Idaho. But I think that more than anything else, it's how we elevate together. And that's just about making things better. Yeah, that starts with the community piece, right? But then knowing that we are building a world-class stadium here in partnership with Ada County and creating a place that people can really come together. And when people come to sporting events, they're coming to experiencing something with people that they care about. Most of the time, they're coming with the people that they love the most, right? We're a memory maker, right? And we're something that brings people closer together. And I don't think from a sporting standpoint that there's any global sport that brings people together better than soccer. And I think that, it's widely attributed to that. So it's not like, that's my opinion. I think it's the world's opinion, but I think that
We agree, right?
Yeah. You can see global examples of that just all the time. And so, when it really becomes, as we're making decisions, as we're looking at corporate partners, it's like, okay, how does this elevate our community? How does it elevate our fan base? How does it elevate those memories that we're trying to create for people? That's really a core focus. And so with our corporate partners that have come in, they're completely aligned with that, because if it's super simple cultural tenets of like, how do we make it better? Just make it better and start there. But, intentionally waking up and being like, okay, that's our focus on the day. I think that people get lost, to your point, in a lot of buzzwords that lose their meaning and a lot of other things. But it's really how you create. Yes, it starts with a vision, but then it becomes, who are we inviting through the door? And I always say you've got to create enrollment in the community versus buy-in. Buy-in is I'm influencing you and I'm pulling you through that door, right? Enrollment is we're coming out with something that it's not just a narrative, but it's action items and it's a plan where people are actually being like, hey, I want to help you with that. And that enrollment piece, that's what we try to create as a club. And I think that, yes, it's nuanced, but it's incredibly important, because then suddenly people are asking, how can we help, versus you saying, hey, I need your help. And that's a different springboard, I guess is the best way to put it, when you're creating relationships and the impact that you're making moving forward. So that's a core focus of ours, is creating enrollment in the community with the things that we believe are most important, and then driving those forward with those partners that want to be there hip to hip with us, hand in hand, and making it happen together.
This might be a little unfair, right? But you guys haven't even fully kicked the ball yet, right? There's been all this build up. You've obviously proven that you can bring the community together. You guys are connecting with fans. But in American soccer in general, it's very up and down. I think we're at the most financially sustainable and culturally relevant stage we've ever been at. Closer approaching, we don't need to be mainstream, but approaching that in general. But you guys want to build something for the long term, right? It took you 13 years to get to this point. So obviously you're very invested in a lot of ways. We talked about this community buy-in, developing fans, and that's wonderful, and we want to start strong, right? But what are the things that you guys are doing now or ready to roll out in year 3, 5, 7? What are some of these key pieces that what you've seen from your background, working in professional sports, operating, consulting, what are those pieces that are going to carry the club forward 5, 10, multi-generational story here instead of just, a strong spark and then maybe slowly start to fade out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with the momentum of soccer, like if we don't take advantage of this opportunity with, I've got a daughter that's a sophomore in college, and then my son's in 8th grade. So first, if you just look at how much that age group, so if you take the 14-year-olds to the 24-year-olds right now, compared to the 25s to 34s, kids weren't wearing kits every single day to school. But right now, if you walk through the halls of junior highs and you walk through the halls of high school, you've got 1 to 2 out of 10 kids that are wearing kits every single day. And so generationally, and a lot of that is because of media accessibility, right?
100%.
They've all got phones. They can see all the highlights. But then when they turn on their TVs on Saturday and Sunday, you've got the best soccer in the world that's on TV. And so there's an interesting connection when I talk to, kids that age about why they're fans and what that's creating. And a lot of it is, they've really got a media, channel to the world now when it comes to professional soccer. So that's completely shifted. When we were looking at it, knowing that's where the market was moving, and this next 5 years of men's World Cup, women's World Cup in Brazil, Olympics in LA in 28, CONCACAF the next year, London World Cup for men in 30, and then women's World Cup in the US in 31. If you think that fandom for those people that are literally 10 years away from making monetary decisions about what they're doing with their fandom and their time aren't going to be impacted at a much higher level than you and I ever have been this next 6-year term, it just doesn't make sense, right? I mean, we're going to be drinking, from a fire hose when it comes to world-class soccer, and it's going to be omnipresent for us in the U.S. And so I think that those two things, when we're looking at where we're going to be year 3, year 5, how to sustainably, really build this business. I mean, and I've mentioned it before, it's like some owners feel like they own professional soccer teams. And it's like, I don't care what pro sports team you own. It's like you are a ticket selling organization at every level that is a gateway to professional soccer in this case. So understanding that you've got to value why every single one of your stakeholders is wanting to buy a ticket and be present and, and take advantage of that gateway. So when it comes to fan experience, every stadium experience, like everything that they feel, so that memory that we talked about before, that memory making process really becomes something that becomes part of them. Right. And with as much as soccer is going to, be omnipresent on the media side, then it just continued to cascade. So yeah, you've got world-class soccer wherever you're at, whether you can watch it or you can go to World Cup games live or whatever it might be, but you've got also your clubs at home that you're able to support and have that toggle between, your community team that's really your memory maker, and then everything else that's on a global stage that I think is so important. So I think that as we look at that, we've got to take advantage of these next 3 years and really create the best experiences that we possibly can. And that's when it builds, and that's where you've got sustainability. But the core of that is, are we creating game experiences and fan experience at our stadiums with high level professional soccer that people love to watch, is entertaining, they want to come back, they want to make sure that's part of really what you're becoming part of is family traditions and company traditions, and making sure that then you continue to build that together. But I think that a lot of it is us continuing to ask the questions of how do we do this better for you? And, people are like, well, you guys are, setting every record in the USL and tickets ever, you're doing all of this. And I'm like, hey, but we can't do it without the people that are supporting us right now. And for us, it's like always making sure that we're checking in with them and asking, how do we continue to move that bar? So we might be setting a standard that's here right now, but it's a constant intentional focus on how do we keep making it better. And with anyone, that starts with communication. Like every professional relationship you've got, it's not that hard, right? Every, personal relationship you've got, it's all about communication and making sure that people are on the same page. And really, we want this to be shared vision, shared goals that we really achieve with our community. It's not us achieving them in a bubble without them. That's just not reality.
I want to piggyback off that a second, because you're doing a great job of painting this picture of the next 5 years. There's so many things happening for soccer in general. I've talked to so many people. We're working on this road trip to the World Cup documentary series. I'm going to all the host cities. I'm talking to people like yourself, fully entrenched in the game here. There is a difference between, let's say, the World Cup, the U.S. goes on a great run. We've got some amazing moments to make people love soccer. But what's the difference between getting that person in Boise who maybe saw like Erling Haaland score a hat trick and now he wants to watch Man City in the morning? How do you turn that experience into, oh, actually, I also want to go watch Athletic Club Boise in my backyard? Because we know from American soccer, and you'll know from your research, we have the most diverse soccer taste in the world, right? And that comes down to culture. But like, there are the people who are perfectly content to just wake up, have their cup of coffee, watch the Premier League. They're not MLS people. They're not USL people. Where's that bridge? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the fact that you've got people that are soccer fans. Like, go down to your Premier League soccer pub and ask them why they're not at your games if they're not. Like, when we went to market, we were there every Saturday morning and every Sunday morning watching games with that core fan group, where they've got 200 people watching Premier League games at one of the bars that are here. And we're talking to them about how we're building this, what we're doing. We're making sure that they've got scarves and stickers and swag and that they're representing from an enrollment standpoint. Like, you want to know that they're used to watching the best soccer in the world. And you want to know what we need to have here to make sure that it's something they're proud to be a part of, because their fandom is watching literally the best soccer in the world. Right. And yeah, it's going to be great professional soccer in the USL. There's no question, but we are not the Premier League. And so I think that when you're able to just create that communication channel and bring people into the process, that changed a lot of things here, because, me sitting down with them, our team sitting down with them, they know we were serious about making sure that they were part of our supporters group, building that with us. Because, they're already incredible soccer fans. But I think that, again, you can't do it in a bubble. You've got to be, proactively going out, creating relationships, meeting those people, getting their feedback, nobody's more passionate. Trust me, if you ask the right questions, they're going to want to build it with you, right? Plus this is their community. It's not like we're creating this narrative that doesn't exist, right? But what we are is forming relationships with people that love where they live and, couldn't be bigger soccer fans and want to be a part of this. And so for us, we really haven't had a lot of pushback where people are like, no, I'm good watching my Premier League at 6 a.m. and then I'm done for the day. The great part of that culture and groups of people like that is it is groups of people and they want to celebrate it together. So, they've got some long Saturdays in store over the next few years for sure, but they're all about it. And they couldn't be more excited about being part of this with us and helping really build this entire thing together. And I think that it's that springboard of why we're having the community involvement that we're having, because we asked for it and overwhelmingly positively, they came running through that door saying, hey, we want to help.
Yeah, but it started with you guys extending that, really connecting first and then extending the invitation. And I like that about your answers, that the onus, the responsibility is on our local clubs, that if they do really seize the opportunity of the World Cup and of all these trends of fandom in the US, it's there, right? Because again, I think it is in general, this community local feeling is really hard to resist if it's done right, if it's done authentically. So this is also a great bridge into our all-time five-a-side segment. So I want to hear your team, Brad. So who are your four legends around you, goalkeeper optional, that you're taking the field with?
So you want real players on this one?
It could be
Okay,
anybody. So we have some people go with family. We have some people go with,
got it. Okay.
local legends we haven't heard of. It could be your
Yeah, I mean,
usual
I think that,
suspects. It's up to you.
yeah, for me, it always starts with family. So I'll put my mom and dad as one of those five. So moving from being in Detroit and being in Portland and being gone for a long time, when you move back home and you're actually able to live where your parents are and have them in your kids' lives at the level
Mm,
that they are, it's something that you don't realize how significant of an impact it's going to be until you're back with it and you realize what was missing, right? My wife, Stacy, definitely, I mean, she's been a critical piece of this. I mean, we have a partnership that is unique, and like, so I would not be able to do any of this unless she wasn't 100% with me and ensuring that we can do that, right? My brother Brian's here in town too, and he's one of the best high school track coaches in the country. But from a support standpoint, this probably isn't shocking to anybody that these are my answers. And, then it becomes, it just cascade through. I could have put all my family on one, but my kids, because they know how much time they probably had to spend with me. And I try to involve them in everything possible because I know what the other side looks like when you don't, and you really don't get
yeah.
those opportunities. So, but we all make choices and we choose to, where do we invest our time? Where do we sacrifice our time? Running professional teams. It's a 24/7, 365
Yeah.
venture, right? And
Yeah.
so, my daughter interns with us. She's a sophomore in college, that she does a fantastic job. For me, like, if you're going to work with us, it's a meritocracy. So better be earning it. So the feedback from everybody else better be high. And she does just an exceptional job. And then, I've got an 8th grade son. And so, where I used to be, I was his U15 soccer coach. I've been his basketball coach for the last 5 years. Like, so I interject on some of that stuff when I could show up, but he knows there was going to be not the same scenario that maybe we had prior to getting this thing truly kicked off last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then outside of that, my co-founding group, just because they've been on this road with me for so long and stayed committed. So Steve Patterson, Bill Taylor, David Wally. I mean, it wasn't me that brought in, I mean, we have an incredible local ownership group. It wasn't just me that did this alone on an island, right? It was the four of us. Dave's one of the best real estate developers in the Northwest. Bill Taylor, as I mentioned before, he was former vice chair of US Soccer. He's a neuroradiologist, but I swear he's only a neuroradiologist to make sure he can have his soccer habit. People that really have an expertise level when you're putting a project together like this that are critical, that you've got operators in their own swim lanes that are world class. And then, outside of that, it just goes to our ownership group that's so committed, and our staff, because I've been able and lucky enough to build a lot of staffs that were world class and be part of world class teams at the professional level. And looking who I've got as part of this team, it's one of the most exceptional teams I've ever been able to put together from a hiring perspective. But, they trust each other. They love each other. They know this is a heavy lift, but they're also doing it because they want to build something for this community that they know is going to be something that will impact lives for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So I think when you put that core group together and you're able to, celebrate together and celebrate wins together and know when you lost together and how to get better and fell forward in every single one of those aspects. Like, trust me, my parents have seen that a ton. My wife has seen that a ton. It's right. So does my brother. So have my business partners. So is my staff. And it's like, it's something where I think that if you're going to be open and honest and lead the way that I think is most impactful, leaders are not defined by titles, right? Throw titles, like leaders are defined by the people that follow them and trust them and love them. And it is that simple. So if you want to be able to lead in that fashion, then you need to have a really keen sense of who's following you and who trusts you and who loves you, because your success, and I mean this, all of your success is predicated on those people that are holding you up.
Different take than what we often see with our all-time five-a-side, but really, really, really awesome to hear that, Brad. Really cool. Yeah, I think it's a great way to kind of put a bow on things, except for our last question here. We are on the Because Football podcast. And could you complete the sentence, because football?
Because football, I think we're able to achieve our dreams. And um, that means a lot of different things for a lot of people. For me, it's this entire project, bringing this back to my hometown, a lot of people want to have success. And I think that they're driven by both professional and personal success. For me, it's like, are we really creating significance? Because success is about you. Significance is about other people and the impact you make on them. So my dream, quite frankly, was to ensure that we built something significant here at home that was going to really change what it meant to live in the Treasure Valley and live in Boise and be part of this. So that's it for me.
Well, coming from the gem state, it's a gem of an answer. And I'm glad that you included significance there. I often use that word relevance, the meaning, right? How are our clubs and how are they relevant to people, to our community? And that's it's great to hear, Brad. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your time with us. If people want to stay up to date on the club, on you, what's a good way to get in touch? We'll put all the links in the description, but how can people reach out?
First, join our newsletter so you stay just at the 10,000 foot level of everything that's going on with the club. But more so, I mean, feel free to reach out. I'm not hard to find. It's just brad@acboise.com, and definitely appreciate the time.
Awesome. Brad, thank you so much. Everybody listening and watching, thank you guys for being here. Hopefully you've got a team you're going to keep an eye on this season, right? And over the seasons as we come. Great actionable insight here from Brad and the experience and expertise he's brought to the pod. So we appreciate that. And we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.